And we are back with another episode of From the Rafters. Sam and I are here recording on Thursday, January 20th, the day after the Celtics lost to the Charlotte Hornets. I wrote an article last night, news article for Celtics blog based on some Jaylen Brown quotes. And my opening was, when it rains, it pours. And if that's true, then the opposite must also be true, which means when it's not raining, it's never going to rain. And that's kind of what happened to the Celtics. You know, nothing fell. I mean, Jaylen Brown shot 2 for 11 from 3. Jayson Tatum shot over 7 from 3. And that's kind of been the topic of discussion on Twitter today, just talking about Jayson Tatum. And I saw our friend Burner Celtics, Ryan, on Twitter, whose profile picture is now OG Anunoby, which is hilarious, put out a thread of some drop-offs and shooting numbers. And I'll start off there, and then we can get into a conversation, Sam, because I know you have your thoughts as well on the whole thing. 3-point shooting regression league-wide. Jayson Tatum, year 1 through 5, 43, 37, 40, 38, 31. Yep. Luka Doncic, 32, 31, 35, 28. Shea, 37, 34, 41, 28. Dame, 36, 37, 40, 39, 31. Paul George, 40, 38, 41, 41, 32. Duncan Robinson, 44, 41, 35. Bradley Beal, 35, 35, 35, 30. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's rough.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is league-wide. A lot of guys complaining about the ball, it's very difficult. You know, the ball is a whole new dimension, new weight. They have to learn how to shoot the ball all over again. It's completely different now.
Yeah.
Which I'm not serious about. It's the same thing. It's the same dimensions. It's a basketball. Shoot it. But in all seriousness, we disagree on this, but this is not a majority minority thing. It's kind of split from what I'm seeing online. I'm in the camp where I think he needs to be shooting less threes at this point, and you disagree, and you have reasons. I have reasons. And I keep throwing this out there. If you don't like Marcus Smart shooting threes because he doesn't shoot them well, and I know you disagree with this, and you've told me why, and it's valid. There's validity to it. But Marcus Smart, for his career, shoots right around where Tatum is shooting this season. Now, like you said earlier,
so different.
I'll let you say it. You can say it, but I want to keep going.
The difference is Marcus Smart has never been a good three-point shooter. Jayson Tatum, outside of this year, has always been a good three-point shooter. And even in college, when it was down around 34, 35, that's still average. He's always been, at the very least, an average three-point shooter. And for the most part, a well above average three-point shooter. So to say you shouldn't want him taking any looks you wouldn't want Smart taking, I understand the sentiment, obviously, but it just doesn't click.
Yeah, but so that is the defense to what I'm saying is, listen, Tatum this year has not been good. He's not. Now, that doesn't discount the rest of his career, like you say, but you're working with the present. He's not making his threes, and he's taking a lot of them. Now, can you look up real quick, if you haven't already looked today, what the volume is this season compared to seasons in the past? Because I feel like, and, you know, anytime someone's missing shots, you're going to remember him more. It feels like he's taking a lot more threes now than he ever has. Which
it's around.
Go ahead.
It's around the same percentage of his shot selection. It's up. It's up from 7.6 threes last year to 8.2 this year. But his shots are also up. His shots are also up 0.4. So, like, obviously, it's a little bit higher of a percentage, but it's not.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not much.
Well, regardless, if you want to meet in the middle, right? Like we're talking about this, I think he should not shoot this many threes. I think max he gets 4, and if he's not making them by then, you got to take a step in, shoot some mid ranges. I personally think they should be making an effort early to get him going from the mid range before he's shooting threes. You let him get a rhythm going, maybe that'll help him get out of the slump. I do agree it is a slump, but it's hurting the team, and that's something we agree on.
Yes, but my thing is, and you are right, he's taking more threes this year than ever, quote unquote.
But the difference isn't that much.
Yeah, 2019-20 season was 38.3% of his shots were threes. Last year was down actually 36.8. This year it's 39. So it's like 0.07 higher than his career high on that. And his career average is around 350 because of his rookie year and his sophomore year. But regardless, you mentioned, getting him going from mid-range, which I can agree with. I mean, he's been, I don't know the numbers.
He's been pretty decent from the mid-range. That's not somewhere I've noticed struggles for him.
And I can look up the percentages just to back that up, but I would tend to agree with you.
But
I think he has been a good mid-range shooter for the most
I
part.
think if you really want to beat the dead horse with him shooting these threes, like, I don't know, he's over. I feel like there have been a lot of games this year where he's put up really bad performances from three, and I mean that's what
There
the
have
percentage
been.
will tell you. And it's
Shooting
becoming a
below
problem. They
32.
are legitimately losing games. You can chalk up last night as one of them if you really want to, because he's shooting too many threes. But really, a lot of guys are shooting too many threes on this team, and this is something we've discussed before, where I feel like this, and we agree, this team as a whole is not a good shooting team, right?
Yes, for the most part. Sorry.
Yeah. So this team is not a good shooting team. And I understand the take what you're given. I mean, these are wide open looks they're missing, but at a certain point, it's not working. You can't make these shots. It's not a question of the shots aren't falling today. They aren't falling at all. Or if they are, it's rarely, like you said, it rains, it pours. They save all their makes for one day, and then they're dry for a week.
And for what it's worth, Jayson Tatum shooting 37% from mid-range, 37.4. So it's not,
which still isn't that great.
No, it's not great. Jaylen Brown, for example, shoots 47.5% from mid-range. So,
and I want to say Jaylen Brown had a really bad game, 3-point wise yesterday.
He did.
I still don't think he's the problem overall. I mean, he's been pretty consistent, especially lately since coming back off of his hamstring when he was actually like ready to come back. He's been pretty solid. Besides, Tatum was out and he really was bad against Minnesota, and the whole team wasn't great against the Clippers.
Then he was good against Orlando.
And he was, he obviously was good in that game. But he was good in that game because he was going to the basket at the end. That's how they got back in the game. Tatum was great on Monday. In the second half, he was going to the basket. Now, there is a difference. You know, New Orleans is New Orleans. And obviously, Charlotte, Juggernaut Plumlee down low, right? Can't finish past him. But there are situations like Embiid's not easy to finish around. Guys don't want to drive on him, whatever. But you need to make a concerted effort to get looks inside and get better at making them. If I hear Scal bring up how much muscle Tatum put on one more time this season.
I haven't heard him say this.
Well, good. Someone must have told him to stop because it was his favorite thing. He was, and then Tatum was like shooting 30% at the rim. It was the greatest.
I wonder what he's shooting now.
He's definitely improved. But he missed a couple yesterday that were tough. And it was just tough. Like they rolled off. Like it wasn't like they were flying off the rim. He needs to get mentally stronger inside. I feel like it doesn't matter about his muscles. He needs to stop worrying about every time he feels a touch to flail or expect a call. I don't really know what's happening there, but he's not as consistent as he should be inside. And he doesn't go up strong as often as he should be.
Tatum shoots 61.2% in the restricted area this season.
That's great. Earlier, it was not that.
Well, it's okay.
It's better than it was.
Yeah, it's improving, but that's still not ideal. I mean, Jaylen Brown shooting 73.4%.
Okay, there you go. Well, it's better than it was. That's a trend in the right direction. The threes have not gotten any better. Now, I don't think for the rest of his career he should abandon threes, but until he figures out how to do it again, the volume needs to decrease. It's hurting the team. It hurt them last night. It's hurt them in multiple games this year. Starting with him, going from the top down, touching on other guys, shooting threes. I just think it's a laziness thing. Not all of Tatum's threes are bad.
Whoa.
No.
Let's calm
down.
Not
all Tatum's threes are bad. That is something you're right about. There are plenty of times he should shoot the three. However, when it's 17 seconds on the shot clock, he's coming off a screen at the top and pulling up. Those shots are not shots I want to see him take right now. They're not going in.
Disagree. I disagree for the same reason I disagree with the whole thing. And again, we're allowed to have different opinions. Jayson Tatum historically has been a really good three-point shooter, yes or no?
Yeah. Sure.
Those shots at the start of the shot clock have been his best shot of his entire career. His best shot. He shoots around 45% on those shots from 15 to 18 seconds left in the shot clock. And even this season, he shoots better on those shots than the rest of the shots combined.
Those are dangerous shots, though.
They are dangerous shots, but they are the best shots because the defense isn't set. Tatum is bringing the ball up the floor, and he's getting open looks there. And again, it's frustrating when they're not going in, especially when they're not going in, because you say, they could have generated
those looks.
33%.
That's not good. It might be better than 31%, but it's still not good. And 45% from his career is good. So I agree.
It was 47 last year.
But I'm not
47 on those.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about now. And
I
that
know,
doesn't mean
but
that
you
you're
can't.
wrong because you think he's going to break out of it eventually, which he will. He definitely
Yes.
will. But right now, it's hurting the team, and they're not doing anything about it. That's my problem. It's not that I don't think he's ever going to be able to shoot threes again. My problem is they are losing games because they insist on doing this, and it's not working.
But you can't like.
It's not like it's been
biggest
5 games and he's been struggling, which he immensely
half a
has over the
season.
last 5 games.
It's been half
But
a
it's
season.
been
I know.
an extended period of time, half a season, where it hasn't worked. Figure it out.
No, okay. The baffling part, though, and I think you'll agree with this at least, for like half of the season it hasn't been like Tatum shooting 32% every game. He either shoots really well or really bad. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there's no like
That's a problem still.
there's no like 3 for 10 games, and there probably are sprinkled in there, but for the most part, it's either he's shooting like 40% or better, or he's shooting like 15%. And yes, that's a problem, but at the same time, with the history he's had, you can't just change up like your whole game plan. Like, and I'll agree with you on this. If he starts the game 0 for 5, 0 for 4, whatever,
pull the plug. That's my biggest thing.
Yes,
that's my
I'll agree with you
biggest
on that.
ask.
At least switch it up, because the clip that went not viral, but like was on Twitter last night. I'm sure you saw. You see the clip John Corrales tweeted out about
the picture of Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown in the corner.
Yeah.
That's a place where I'm like, okay, Jayson Tatum at this point is probably like 0 for 4 or 5 from 3. You see Jaylen Brown in the corner. He has an open lane. You need to pass that ball. I don't care if you are open, because you have guys closing out on you. You get that ball to Brown. I agree with that.
Plus he's good from the corner, Brown.
Yes. But at the same time, I don't agree with the ideology that Tatum needs to stop taking threes, because if he gets an open 3, I don't care if he's 0 for 11. You take the shot. You take the shot if he has an open 3.
Take no threes. I mean,
I know
he needs to pick his threes more carefully.
If Tatum is 0 for 11 from the field,
he needs to really make an effort not to get baited into shooting them. Because like you say, when he's been cold, he's been cold. If he's hot and he's making his threes, like that Pacers game last week, he started off like 4 for 4. Shoot as many as you want. If you're making them, I don't care. But if you're not making them, like, you need to realize that and adjust.
Sure, but I don't care if he's 0 for 1, 0 for 5, or 0 for 10. If he gets a wide open 3, I want him taking the shot. Every time I want Jayson Tatum taking the shot.
Every time. Well, I think that shot last night was open at the time.
With the Jaylen Brown thing?
Yeah, that one. It was open, but Brown was more open, and he still took the shot.
Of course. And that's the exception. If there's other guys open and you know you're cold, fine. But if you are open and you have a shot, and like whatever, say there's no other options, you can't have Jayson Tatum. Like, that's where the issue comes in. You've heard of the yips, right? You can't have a guy who's historically exactly. I mean, I haven't had the chance to play basketball at the level you have, unfortunately, so I can't say the same.
But D2 basketball in Rhode Island is the pinnacle.
I was gonna say you didn't play in college. High school D2 is
high school. Yes.
I didn't know there were divisions in high school. That tells you where I was at when I was in high school. My point is, for a player like Jayson Tatum, right? The Marcus Smart thing, right? At this point, Marcus Smart's never had a problem with confidence, whatever. So at that point, after you have X however many years of showing he's not a good 3-point shooter, he has learned and has gotten better this year. Maybe don't take so many of those shots. Jayson Tatum has taken an increased amount of threes every year because he is good at those shots. And I don't want to let half a season of a struggle season, especially when everybody across the league, every superstar around the league is struggling to shoot the ball this season. I don't want that to affect Tatum's confidence in the slightest.
You can't say LeBron's shooting like 40%, and he sucks at shooting.
There's obviously anomalies, yes, but you can't look at one, it's the same thing.
It's
the same argument.
There are a lot of guys trending downwards. Like, you pulled up our buddy Celtics fan, Ryan, his stats.
Every single shooting superstar around the league is having a down year. Even Steph Curry, who's having a phenomenal year.
Remarkable to me.
Duncan Robinson is having a bad year. Stephen Curry is having a down year from 3. And no one's going to talk about it because he's still shooting a ridiculous percentage.
Well, it's not even that. It's like the Warriors are winning games. The Heat are winning games. Okay.
Yes, and you want to know why? Do you want to know why they're winning games? And this is,
because they don't rely on that.
No, not even. We'll take a second to take off the blame. It's because they have other guys who are. They have other guys who are making threes. PJ Tucker leads the league in 3-point percentage. Andrew Wiggins just shooting 42% from deep. Jordan Poole shooting well from 3. The Warriors have a whole host.
Shoot.
Okay, yes, but it's two guys.
Jaylen Brown's at almost 37% again. He's figuring it out.
Sam, don't sit here and try to argue that the
teams
Celtics
are not
have
equal,
shooters.
but there are still guys on the Celtics that can make threes.
Sure, but when it comes to it, the Celtics are a bad 3-point shooting team, correct?
Yes, they are. And they need to stop working to make open 3-point looks, instead work to make open looks in spots they can actually put the ball in the basket, whether it's underneath, mid-range, at the free throw line, wherever. That's really what I'm getting at is, one, if Tatum's off, he needs to realize that and adjust. That's number one. Yeah. It doesn't mean go into the game thinking no threes for me. It means, okay, I've missed 3 threes in a row. Maybe I'll work to get a mid-range, or not even him. Ime Udoka says, all right, I brought it up last night or early this morning. An example play is the play they used to run for Avery Bradley. He'd come off the handoff and make it a mid-range. Mm-hmm. Like right at the elbow or something. Do that.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, and
get him a look that he should be able to make. We said 37% from the mid-range. Still not fantastic.
Start driving. And I'm not like saying Tatum shouldn't drive more. Of course he should drive more. I'm just saying I disagree with the sentiment that Jayson Tatum needs to stop taking threes when they're open. Because that's the thing I've seen a lot on Twitter. Sure. And maybe, but the thing is, what threes do you take away? You could say, okay, don't shoot those, contested ones. He's shooting the same amount of contested threes he's shot in his whole career. He's shooting the same breakdown is wide open, contested. It's the same percentage as across his entire career.
Most importantly, if he misses let's say 0 for 4, 0 for 5, after that, he shouldn't be shooting threes unless it's something that's a contingency
unless it's wide open.
They shouldn't be running at that point. They shouldn't be running offense to get him open threes so he can shoot them. If he happens to get an open look off of a drive or something like that, it's different. But I don't want them, running their whole offensive sets to get him the open look from 3. I don't want. Yeah. I would love to see a lot less of the early off the pick threes. This season, still 33% is not good. It's not good. It's what we have in front of us right now. It's not. I mean, I'm not going to bring up veterans that have declined because he's not a veteran that's declining. He's 23.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic. There's plenty of options for you there too.
No. I mean, you could say Ray Allen. If you put him out there now, he wouldn't shoot as high of a percentage from 3. That's the kind of thing I mean.
Obviously,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
But right now, he's not shooting well from 3. So instead of having him continue to take a high volume, pick the spots. Take threes that are really, really makeable and let him get his confidence back.
The issue is
easy to overreact and say okay, no more threes, which I think they should do sometimes during the offense, when they're really struggling.
I know what you're saying.
I don't want to see threes when the other team's on a run. I'm sorry. If the scored 3 possessions in a row, get to the basket.
Last night, obviously, I know you saw the stat. They were in the bonus with 8 minutes 40 left, and they took no free throws. That's not okay.
That's bad. They took 16 threes in the fourth out of 24 shots.
And that's a problem. I'm not sitting here saying, this amount of threes is fine. Always take threes. That's not what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with the threes when they are wide open looks. Even away from Tatum. Those Josh Richardson threes, even you were fine with those. Those are wide open.
He was making his threes yesterday. Of course I'm fine with
exactly. But with superstars,
40% from the season.
He's a good 3-point shooter. Exactly. The same thing you could say for Grant. He can take those threes too, and even Schroeder yesterday. Sure. And if you listen to the podcast, you know I hate
threes.
Yeah, I dislike Schroeder. Schroeder's been amazing lately. He's been saving the Celtics, and I'm going to give him all the credit.
He was 5 of 7 yesterday, and there were still at least I remember he pulled up on a fast break once. I hated that.
But
hey, I remembered that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Regardless, though, if Tatum gets an open 3, I want him taking that 3. Obviously, there are exceptions to that rule, like the Jaylen Brown picture we're referencing. If there's other guys open, if you can get a pass for a layup, fine. But I don't want Tatum to stop taking threes because he is a good 3-point shooter. He's having a bad 3-point shooting year, but Jayson Tatum is a good 3-point shooter. And those can both be true. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. So that's where I think in the Celtics this year, in case you're wondering, they rank 13th in threes attempted. They attempt 36 threes a night, 35.9. And obviously, I'm going to say next, they're ranked 23rd in 3-point percentage. It's actually up a little bit. It's 33.8 now.
They've been a little better lately. Horford's made a couple. He's been a little bit more consistent over the last stretch of games. Like you said, Schroeder's been really good. Jaylen Brown's been playing a little bit better besides last night. Tatum's really the only one that hasn't found his footing shooting wise. He's had some games here and there where he was great, like the Pacers game, he was great. The Pelicans, he was great going to the basket, which was great. He scored 27 on Monday without making a three. He can do it. And that game is a prime example of how he needs to play. He couldn't make a three that day. He found another way to score. Last night, maybe you don't think it's lazy. I feel like collectively in the fourth quarter, it was laziness. If you're taking 16 out of your 24 shots from three and you're having a terrible night from three in a close game, that's bad. You need to do something to get better looks than that when you are not making them and the game is close.
I understand the sentiment because...
And that's not just him.
I know. And looking at the box score, obviously you see, okay, 16 out of this X many shots were threes and you shot this percentage. It's bad. And I'm not going to sit here and say, okay, that's bad. Like say that's a good thing, that's great. But what I will say is the reason I don't see it as lazy is because taking open shots isn't lazy. That's basketball. That's smart. Like you need to take open shots.
It's
and
not
obviously
smart if you're not making them that day. Like you've had 3/4 of sample size to know it's not your night unless you're Schroeder or Richardson. Even Grant was 2 of 5. So like, I guess that's okay. But everybody else was not having a good game.
I know. Of how many threes do you say they took?
16 out of 24.
8 of them were wide open, meaning there was no defender within 6+ feet of the player. I don't care how many threes you miss. You take threes that are wide open with 6 feet of space in the NBA. You take the shot. Every time you take the shot. That's just basketball. Yes.
Rob Williams?
No. Okay. If you are a 3-point shooter, you take the shot. Even if you shoot 30%. If you're wide open, you take the shot. That's basketball. And Marcus Smart will take the shot, if he's wide open. Jaylen Brown, Grant Williams, Jayson Tatum, Dennis Schroeder, Al Horford. You take the shot if you're wide open, right? Whatever. There is exceptions, obviously. Like if Jaylen Brown's open in the corner, whatever. 6 of them were open, meaning a defender was 4 to 8 feet away. So 14 of their 16 threes were good shots by the definition of they were open shots or wide open shots, right? And obviously you could look at the other two and whatever they missed. And you want to know the ironic part, Sam? The other two
better on the contested.
The other two, the last two that were tightly contested, 2 to 4 feet, 2 for 2.
Well, they were Schroeder in that. I think they were the ones he chucked at the end. He made both of them.
Yep. So it's obviously frustrating when they're not going down, but that's good offense. And I completely understand and agree. And I know exactly what you're going to say next, but it hasn't worked for them this year. So you need to change it. Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. But in that situation, especially when you're down and you're getting open threes with most of them, like how many did Tatum take? I don't know off the top of my head.
7.
7 threes in the fourth quarter.
Oh, no. Overall.
No, I want to know in the fourth quarter because 2 of them at least were Richardson, right? 1 of them was Brown, at least. X many.
Horford made 1.
X many were Schroeder, however. So what are we talking? 2 to 3 were Tatum. So sure, you can look at 1 or 2 or even maybe all of them that Tatum shot and say, okay, get a better look. That still means they're taking 13 of those threes. You know what I'm saying? I'm fine. Excuse me, with taking open threes. I understand and even somewhat agree with the frustration that it hasn't worked. Find better ways. But I most of the threes in that fourth quarter, I'm not going to complain about. Like it obviously it hurts when you don't make them, but
like I said, you had 3 quarters to realize it's not your night. Richardson, fine, shoot him. You making him shooter, shoot him, fine. Besides that, really, you should be working to get shots that aren't those. Yes, they were wide open. Fine. Now, does that mean the defense didn't want them to be open? Maybe they were baiting you to take those shots.
They were 100% baiting the Celtics. 100%.
Right. So
and
you're playing
I agree
exactly what they want you to do, which if you have, all these guys that can shoot on your team, fantastic. If your team's on shooting that night, fantastic, but they weren't. So as this isn't on Tatum, this part of our conversation we're having right here for the people listening. This is not me ripping Tatum. We're done with that. This is on the team as a whole, and really Ime Udoka. Work to get shots that aren't threes at that point in the game. You haven't made threes all game. I don't know the percentage they had, up until that point.
I can tell you.
It was not good. It was no good. No. It was in the 20s. and you shot 66% of your shots in that quarter from there. It's bad.
And
you might not want to say it's lazy, but I mean,
yeah,
you're in a close game. You need to find a way to get that ball to go in the basket. And if you've had this whole game to realize it's not your night from three, figure it out. You're in the bonus for the last 8 minutes and you don't get to the free throw line. I mean, that's even more of a reason not to be shooting threes.
And that's the part I'll agree with you. Like, if you're in the bonus with that much time left, you need to get to the line, and that's not excusable. Like, and they were shooting 30% through the first 3 quarters, which is bad. So I agree with the sense that you probably should have created other ways of offense. But and I found the stat: Tatum didn't take a single 3 in the fourth quarter that wasn't wide open, and he took 2. Tatum took 2 threes in the fourth quarter. He missed them both wide open. Frustrating, painful, obviously not great.
They were both in the corner. I remember them.
You live with them. I mean, those specifically, you live with them. The wide open
baseline.
Sure. But if they're packing the paint and you have a wide open 3 and you're Jayson Tatum and you've historically made 40% of your threes, you take the threes. It's built into your game. And I agree with you in the sense that the Celtics, in the grand scheme of things, need to do a better job of getting in the paint. I'm not saying they don't, because if you're in the bonus with 9 minutes of game time left, you don't shoot free throws from there on out. That is bad basketball. That is terrible basketball, and you need to be better. But at the same time, I just disagree with the idea that you shouldn't take the wide open threes in the grand scheme of things, just from a basketball perspective. And I understand the argument against what I'm saying, but that's just how I feel in the situation, and I think there's also an argument to say Udoka needs to be better and recognize the personnel he's working with, which is fair. That's a fair criticism. And I also think there's a fair criticism saying, okay, well, you see this offense can work in theory if you make shots, so you get shooters. That because realistically speaking, if you had a more well-rounded shooting team, this offense would be gorgeous, right? I mean, you see purely at the looks they're getting. And I agree with
if Tatum was just shooting normally, it would probably be fantastic.
It'd be good. And they're not. And they're
not. I'm not discounting any of that. I'm just saying you're not doing it for the right team. This is not the team for that. Figure out how to do it, how to get shots another way. And that's the big problem for me. And, you said, you're not going to not take open shots or open threes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's about not taking them. I feel like it's about not settling for them. See, I'm looking at it differently than you.
I don't think you can settle. Like, if you have a wide open 3, and most of them they were working for. It's not like they're just walking up to the corner. Oh, this is open. They pass. They move the ball. They get those looks. You know what I'm saying?
They absolutely did pass, but
they work for
all
the
possessions.
They're not lazy.
All the possessions they were Why are you working for that? It's not working. Why are you settling to work for that? Because it's easier than working for maybe a pass across the lane to an open guy on the other block.
Especially against the Hornets, I'll give you that, because the Hornets are not good on defense. But a big part of the Hornets' issues on defense is they give up a lot of open threes, and most teams are able to kill them there. It's just the Celtics aren't. It's just the Celtics could not, and they did not. So that's 100% a fair argument.
That's the frustrating part for me, man. Like, this was a game that it's a team that's right around the Celtics in the standings. Celtics have been on a little bit of a hot streak. Now it's 5 out of 7, but it was 5 out of 6. If you win yesterday, that's a game that's like a statement win. That's like, we're figuring things out. That's a team that's like not really a joke that we just beat. They're not like a world beater, but that's a team that's been playing decent this season. They were now they're 5 games over 500. They were 4. It's really sad that we're measuring things like this at this point of the year with this team. But nonetheless, if you win that game, it's a really good win. And if you lose, it kind of discounts all these wins you've had over the last week. To me,
I completely disagree with that sentiment. I was just going to say when you're done, I don't want to overreact to this one game because the Celtics have been playing really good basketball lately, right? I mean, 5 out of 7 is still good. And obviously last night's, or whenever you're listening to this, Wednesday night's loss is frustrating. It's painful because you should have won the game if you had made your threes. Or
there have been positives over the last week.
Or if you had looked for better shots. I don't want to sit here and overreact to that game, just like Ime Udoka didn't want to overreact to the Sixers game, because there were clear reasons why they didn't win each game. The Sixers game, they didn't come to play. They didn't hustle. They weren't playing good basketball, and that was that. And they bounced back, right? And then they fixed those things, and they played better in the coming games. Last night, I mean, You could say they didn't work for enough good shots in the fourth quarter. Fine. You could say they didn't make their open looks when they should have made those open looks because even the guys who have been good from three didn't make their shots. Fine. That's a fine argument too. You could say they took too many threes. Fine. But they bounced back after the Philly game and they've been playing better lately. So I have no reason to believe that they can't bounce back after this game against Charlotte. So I'm not going to sit here and obviously I have
better. They're playing Portland. Portland's awful.
I know. That's my point. I'm saying I have, based on how they've played this month, I have no reason to believe they can't bounce back. So I'm not going to sit here and panic and, go back to being miserable because they've been better after one loss. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's not about yesterday's loss. It's about the whole season as a collective. Congrats. You just beat up on like a bunch of mediocre teams. Congratulations. You play a team that's actually competitive and you lose. The two most competitive teams they played over the last week, they lost. They play Philly, Chicago. You can say, they're top of the conference, but they're without a lot of guys. That's why I say that. It's not because I don't think they're good. They're top of the conference, but they were without most of their, no Levine, no Lonzo. Who else didn't play for Derek Jones? They were without like 7 or 5 of their 7 top scorers or something like that. Like there's a reason I'm saying this for the listeners.
Yeah. Sure.
And then you lose to Charlotte, who's a good team.
Yep. I understand the strength of opponents, blah, blah, blah. They've been playing better basketball lately. Facts.
They should be. They're playing against bad teams.
Okay. Stop. They are playing better basketball lately, period. Yep, period. That's the end of the sentence. They've been playing better basketball.
They played a horrible first half against the Pelicans. It was horrible.
And then they fixed it.
They did a great thing. They closed the game. Fantastic. Yes. They closed the game against the Bulls. Those are good things. The problem is you're not building on it. You show up against, you have a good win against the Pacers, 2 wins against the Pacers. The first one, well, you're on a 3-game streak because you blow out the Knicks, then you beat the Pacers, you scrape by them, and then you blow them out. You go into Philly, and you don't even come to play.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Okay, that one is kind of a discount thing because they just overall didn't come to play.
Yep.
Okay, so then you bounce back from that. You play Chicago. You play all right. You go up kind of big early. The game gets close again. You go down in the fourth quarter, and you close the game which is great because you haven't done that all season.
Yes.
Then you come out flat in a matinee, which is expected, and then you finish the game. Great.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, and then you play Charlotte,
and you don't make shots.
None of that carries over.
Yeah,
you're not building on that. This Charlotte game is like the exam. You can get all A's on these little quizzes. You get to the exam, that's like the big chunk of the grade. This is where we see what you actually know and what you've learned. And you show up and you do the same thing. You play poorly in the fourth quarter.
My problem is a lot of fans and a lot of people are seeing this growth from what is an average team. The Celtics overall this season's up to now they've been an average team, or you could even argue a below average team. And in the past, what is it? Almost 2 weeks now, you've seen growth, and a lot of people see this growth over a couple games and expect the Celtics to magically return to a 50-win team. That's not going to happen. They're not that good. Whether or not you think they should be that good or they should have been that good at the start of the season, that ship has sailed. They're not a 50-win team. They're not a top 4 seed in the East. They're not going to win a championship. Right now, they need to focus on growth. And what you've seen over the last week and a half has been growth. And I don't care if they're playing the Pistons. I don't care if they're playing the Heat. If they're playing better as an individual basketball team, regardless of the strength of the opponent, I see that as growth at this point because they're playing better basketball. And sure, Charlotte was a step back because they took too many threes or whatever. But if they made, 4 of those threes, which they probably should have made because they were open shots, this entire narrative is different. So I'm not going to spend, X amount of minutes, this amount of time complaining because they shot poorly from 3 and shot themselves in the foot, because that's exactly what they did. Whether they shot themselves. Yes, but they've showed growth over the past week and a half based on what they played, how they played at the start of the year, which is a good thing. So I'd rather focus on the good things, which has been the majority of the past 2 weeks, than the one negative, which could be a negative because they missed shots or because they didn't take the right shots. Regardless, it's a negative. But I'm not going to focus on that one game when they've been playing better as a whole and as a collective.
They have been better over the last few weeks. They have. They've won 5 out of 7.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
But you lose the 2 most challenging games. That's not impressive to me. Prove that you can do it against a team that matters.
They're not going to.
Well, then that's a problem.
Yes, and it's
You
been
said
the problem
breaking.
all year. Yeah, breaking news, Sam.
Yeah.
They're not good. Like, and it sucks, right? Because
See, I
Boston,
haven't dismissed my early expectations as you have.
yeah,
And that's my own fault, whatever. I just feel like they're better than they. I mean, like you say,
I agree.
Tatum,
They should be. They should be. Is
if
what it
he's
is.
better, they probably win a lot more games.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, win some games here. Figure it out. It's time to stop screwing around. This is not a team that should be at the level they're at. Whether or not that changes what they are right now, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the issue.
But to me, growth is getting to where you should be. And they have taken small steps towards that. The most impressive things to me is that they closed kind of back-to-back games over the weekend and Martin Luther King Day. Those were both games they closed. I guess you could say they closed against the Pacers last week, even though they blew the lead first, and then they scraped it out in overtime. Okay, yesterday's game was just a measuring stick game to me, and that they didn't continue those trends in that game is really not great to me.
That's fair, and of course, I agree with you in the sense that it wasn't great, but I'm just not going to dump all of my expectations into that one game because you said growth to you is getting to where you should be. In my opinion,
they're at where they should be.
No, not even.
No,
that's the goal. The growth is the journey to get to that goal, and that's not going to be a 2-week journey. It's probably going to take them into next season to get back to where they're supposed to be, which sucks. And it's going to take roster tweaks. It's going to take, different change of play styles for Tatum and Brown. Because realistically speaking, even if obviously, my feelings, like Tatum should still take those shots, whatever. Even if, let's say you're right. Let's say everyone who's saying Tatum needs to stop taking those shots is correct. It's going to take him more than half a season to adapt to that, especially when he took most of that half a season to realize that he needs to adapt. So this growth that the Celtics need to do to get to that end goal is going to take a long time, which is extremely frustrating and painful for everyone who's watching the team, covering the team, or is a fan of the team. But it's just how it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not going to be this 50-win team after a few game stretch, especially because, like you said, some of these teams are bad teams. Pelicans are a bad team. Who else? The Pacers not a good team at all this year.
Pacers are bad.
But they need to take those games to improve on themselves.
They should win those games. Those are games they should win. Congrats.
Of course.
But you did what you're supposed to do.
I know. My point, though, is they haven't won a bunch of those games this year. So to see them, it's not about the end result. It's not, and obviously you want to win. In the end, it is about the end result. But for this Celtics team that is, newsflash, not going to win a championship. I'm sorry. Not going to win a championship. Probably not even going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Might even struggle to get to the playoffs in general. Though you need to take that time to improve internally, right? You need to improve, play better as a team, learn to work with Udoka, figure out, roster. Take the time to look at the roster, see what's working, see what's not working. And if you can string a few wins together while that's happening and string together, a better seeding, get into that playoffs, get some experience, some more experience, I should say. Awesome. That is good. That is growth. Improving internally and as a unit is growth. But this team is not going to turn into the 50-win team that they want to be, or arguably they probably should be with the personnel they have. They're not going to turn into that team.
Well, that's the problem
overnight.
That's the issue I have.
I know. And I'm not saying you're wrong.
There's a lot of moving pieces coming into the season, so them struggling early might not have necessarily been a surprise.
Not even. Not even.
Schroeder, Richardson, 2 important pieces coming in that you need to work into your team. Horford coming in, who wasn't on the team in the last couple of years, you need to rework him. All those things should be ironing themselves out right now, and they're not, so that's an issue for me.
And I'm not saying you're wrong. Of course it's a problem. So that means something bigger is wrong here, right? Something's not working, and you need to figure that out. But they're not, based on what we've seen all season, it's very clear that this is going to be a longer growth process than a lot of, fans or people who cover the team want to admit and, understand. It's going to be a while. They're not going to contend this year. And hell, as far as they're not going to contend next year, and it sucks. But, and I'm not saying you're saying trade Brown or trade Tatum, because I know you disagree with both those notions. The people saying trade Tatum, trade Brown because they've had this experience. Jaylen Brown is 25. Jayson Tatum is 23, 24
now. Those people are big wrong. Wrong.
I know. They've got plenty of time, and now that this season is very clearly not a championship level or even playoff contention season, you take this season as I don't even know what the right word for it. as a building block, as an experimentation season, in the sense that you look at all the pieces you have, you figure out what you need to the future
Well,
for
it's
the
a
future and
tryout.
which
We've
ones you
talked
want to
about
keep.
this before.
Exactly. And I think that's where the shift in thought process from Udoka and even Brad Stevens needs to go. I think you need to trade Dennis Schroeder simply from the perspective that he's not going to be here long term, and you're not competing this season. I'm sorry, you're not. Like, it's not going to be a competitive season. And realistically speaking, with the way he's been playing, at this point, if you can only get a second back for him, I wouldn't even complain, from a purely competitive standpoint, because at least it would show Brown and Tatum that, we're trying to win here. We just need to figure it out. Like, sure, fine, keep Schroeder. Right? He's been playing better lately. That's fine. But from the perspective of, if you want to learn and grow, you need to figure out which pieces need to stay, and you need to play Pritchard, probably trade Schroeder because you want to give Pritchard that chance. In addition, if you think you can keep Richardson past next season, keep him around, obviously, because he's a good piece, and I know you like him, and I like him too. You keep him around. So, but if you can't, you got to explore the trade market because his value is higher right now than it will be at the same point next season. Al Horford, you love Al, I love Al. It's not working right now. Like, he either needs to be coming off the bench, and as our friend Tim Shields pointed out, if you're paying someone $30 million to come off the bench, not great. It's not ideal. Right. You know what I'm saying? And they're exploring, moves for that too. Marcus Smart, once he's back from injury, you take a look at him in X many games before the trade deadline. His value right now is obviously not where you might want it to be, but it's probably as high as it might be, especially because he's got so many years left. And some of these competing teams with offensive-minded superstars probably wouldn't mind putting Marcus Smart next to those guys. You talked about Trae Young, Luka Doncic, Dame Lillard. Like, you want a defensive guy to help negate some of their defensive issues. Bingo, Marcus Smart right there for you. So you take that time to look at him. Even Grant Williams, as much as I love him, like, his value is as high as it's gonna get right now. Like, if you get a good offer for Grant Williams and you can package him to get something to help you long term, you look at all your options. This season is, like you said, it's a tryout. It's a tryout. Aaron Nesmith and Romeo Langford, their tryout might already be over, realistically, right? They've shown flashes, but
I don't know about Nesmith. Brad seems to really like Nesmith. Everything I've heard him say about Nesmith, he loves him.
Yeah.
But I don't know about Romeo. Romeo's weird just because, like, he's just now this season getting the extended run of someone that hasn't been injury prone their whole first years. So you have to take him with a grain of salt too.
The thing is, though, a month ago, 2 months ago, we were saying the very opposite thing, right? We were saying, trade Aaron, keep Romeo. And now we're saying that. So you don't know. And that's the inconsistency of this team right now. You don't know anything. You don't know what's going to happen in the next month, which is frustrating.
I think to avoid the good old Max Strus, Desmond Bane issues, you really need to give those guys, especially Nesmith, as much run as you can before you make a decision like that.
Yeah.
Specifically Nesmith. Like, Nesmith has shown you some good things. Biggest knock on him is that he's not making his shots, which is really the selling point for him coming out of college.
Yep.
Which is tough, but he's shown other things you didn't ever get. Like, he's a freak.
And I like Nesmith.
He busts his ass defensively. Brad said he feels like, so when he came into camp last year, he felt like he was 2 years away. So we're only a year in. And then, he said like a couple months down the line, he was the seventh guy on the team. But he's not, I don't think he's someone you necessarily want to give up on just yet. You need to give him some run consistently first.
And I'm not saying, like, I like Nesmith. I don't even mind Romeo. But
Romeo was actually really good yesterday. So
he was.
There's that.
At some point, though, you can't, I think Gary Washburn said this, you can't have the roster filled with guys who haven't developed yet, right? So you got to manage your expectations. Like, okay, do we want to compete this season, or do we want to have a tryout this season for the young guys? And regardless of what the answer is, if you are trying to have a tryout for the young guys, probably trade Richardson, right? And it sucks because you want him here long term. But from what we've seen from the rotations this year, and maybe you could say, oh, fire the coach. You can't fire the coach midseason.
I don't think you should fire the coach. I don't think that's necessarily. I think I've said this before. I don't think he's the problem, but I don't think he's currently doing anything to fix it. Yes. Maybe he has over the last couple of weeks. Like you said, there have been things that have improved, but they failed the exam yesterday.
So if you want to play Nesmith, though, you probably trade Richardson, right? And you get some value back for him. And I'm not saying you get,
but I see the thing about Richardson is I really think like he's someone that you should have even after, this year. Like, he's someone that's on that final equation for you.
I
Like,
agree
he's
with
a
you.
good player. He's making his threes. He plays defense. He can handle the ball, run the pick and roll. He's good on the drive, especially with his left hand. Like, those are all like really positive things out of Neesmith. They shouldn't trade him just because his money is tradable. Like, $11 million
That's
is
not what I'm
tradable.
saying.
And
I'm
I know
saying
that's not what you're saying, but I also
yes.
don't think they should trade him just so they can try out Neesmith. Because if Neesmith turns out not to be great, then you kind of gave up Richardson.
I know. But then you got to find a way. I mean, split their minutes then or something. Because I agree with you that Richardson does seem like he could be a good piece on a championship level team with Tatum and Brown on it. But then you got to have that conversation with him. Obviously, he's here next year. But the year after that, like realistically, next year, probably not going to compete. The year after that's going to be the first year, ideally, on this timeline that the Celtics are now currently on, that you want them back in contention, right? So you got to ask Richardson, like, hey, what are your thoughts long term? I know it's a lot to ask you right now, but we obviously you've seen where we're at as an organization. Like, what do you think? And you get his thought process. And if he's like, yeah, I really like it here, boom, you plan for that. And you can think about, consolidating some of these younger wings in favor of that veteran who can help you down the line. Great. But if he's like, I'm not sure, you got to consider it, right? Because his value this year is going to be considerably higher than next year.
If I'm Richardson, though, he should like it here. This is the best he's played in a while.
Yeah, I would hope so.
He's like really thriving on this team. Played better than he probably has since leaving Miami.
Yeah.
This is good for him. If he doesn't like it here, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't know. Then I guess you should trade him at that point. If he doesn't want to be here and he's playing well, like you say, get something back. But if he does want to be here, I think you have it right. Talk to him, see what he thinks. And they really need to make sure he's being straight with him.
Yeah, you don't want a Kyrie situation, obviously.
Now, before we've been going a while, but before we wrap up, we have a trade to discuss.
Yes. I was about to pick up my phone. Yes.
Oh yeah, you were all excited. You're like, oh my.
I was like, what trade?
No. So Bol and PJ Dozier are now members of the Celtics. They are in the hospital, but they've got green hospital robes on. So there's that.
They do. Yes, they do. Celtics traded Juancho Hernangomez to the Spurs. Got back.
Those two guys.
Yeah, Dozier and Bobo. I don't know why I had a brain fart. Spurs sent Bryn Forbes to the Nuggets. Nuggets sent a 2028 second to the Spurs. I know your gut reaction was, well, why didn't the Celtics get Forbes? And that's understandable. I mean, he's a guy even I brought up as somebody who could help them.
Well, that was the main thing for me, right? Like, you thought he was an attainable guy. And, like, I just couldn't believe, like, all the Spurs really got was Juancho. Like, that second-round pick is, like, years away. 6 years away. Like, who cares?
Yeah, and it's protected. Fun fact.
So, they traded Juancho. They got Juancho and gave up Bryn Forbes. Like, why didn't the Celtics work that out? But I listened to the radio today, and Brad Stevens seemed like he was really – he likes Bol from what he said. Like, he seemed excited. Like, he said, like, his, like, ceiling is really high, like, saying, like, he does all these things well. The problem is, like, they're both, free agents. Bol's restricted. I don't know if PJ Dozier is or not.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I liked PJ Dozier to be on this team if he wasn't injured. Sure.
I do like PJ. My gut response, or my initial response to you when we talked about this not on the podcast, was
we were on the pregame. We were not happy with each other at the time.
It's a tax move, right?
Yes.
Boston gets under the luxury tax a little bit, et cetera, business. Since then, I don't know if it's realized, but I've come up with a new rationale for it, which I think makes a lot more sense for a basketball perspective. You're trading Juancho for essentially nothing, right? You're just getting him off the books. That's fine. And ideally, you bring Bryn Forbes in. That's great. How much does Bryn Forbes raise the ceiling of this team? Realistically, like, honestly, maybe he wins you 2-3 more games, if that, in the grand scheme.
Yesterday's game, you would have passed the exam. I'd be drinking the Kool-Aid today.
Perfect example. Does Bryn Forbes make the Boston Celtics championship team?
No, probably not.
So if he's going to be off the books at the end of the season, you don't know what his market value is going to be around the league. Like, realistically speaking, with the season he's had, like, could be a team out there giving him $7 to $10 million. Sounds crazy. Like, that's probably an overpay, but there could be a team out there willing to give him that with their MLE, and that's fine. So what it tells me is one of two things. And plus, if you do that, like, you thought Neesmith wasn't getting minutes now. Boy, oh boy, would he get no minutes with Bryn Forbes on this team. So it tells me one of two things. One, Brad Stevens realizes that this is not a championship team. This is not a deep playoff team. What's the point of adding veterans when you need to play your young guys and figure out stuff for the future? Or B, he's got another move up his sleeve. And if the Celtics don't want to be a luxury tax team or don't want to be like even higher in that tax, in order to make that move, you need to get a little bit under it now so you can make a move later. So I think those two make a lot more sense than just, the business, which is obviously a big part of it as well. But you know what I'm saying?
I will say this on the Toucher and Rich interview today with Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
He seems to be more in my camp here. He's not thrilled.
With what?
He kind of said like he doesn't care so much for the last like week or so. Like he didn't think it was that impressive what they did.
Oh, really?
You should go listen to it later if you have the time.
I will.
But, like he was like saying like there were a lot of things he thought they did well yesterday, but like he thinks like they might have played better yesterday than they did in some of the wins. Like he cited the New Orleans game where they were really bad.
They probably did. They just didn't make shots.
But he doesn't seem like he's accepting that they're at this point in the season. Like he thinks they should be better than they are, and he's not thrilled.
Of course. And I my whole like spiel, whatever, the past 20 minutes, I'm not saying I'm happy with where the Celtics are at. They stink. They're not good right now. They're not a good basketball team right now. They're not playing at the level they should be playing at. But in comparison to the way we've seen them the rest of the season, this is growth. And I recognize that, as much as it's painful because it's obviously not where the team should be. It's better, right? And it's a slow process and it's slowly getting better, which sucks. But they are getting better. So that's why I'm not even confident. I'm just like not at a state where I'm going to be super, super duper pissed off. Because like you said, they probably kind of did play better against the Hornets. They just didn't make their shots.
Well, they played all right defense, but
yeah,
I don't know, man. I will say I wasn't that hurt. Grant Williams made 2 threes. I needed him to make over 1.5, and Schroeder over 3.5 rebounds yesterday. Good picks for me.
There you go.
I should start dropping them on the pregame. I'll start looking up picks during the day for those.
Please do. Also, before we wrap up here, Sam.
Yeah.
Interesting news based on someone you think the Celtics should trade for. Heat.
Washington?
No, Heat are open to trading Duncan Robinson.
Real? Well, I mean, I don't blame them. These contracts really big, and if he's not shooting, that's all he's good for.
Took him out of the starting lineup past couple weeks in favor of Mr. Max Strus.
No, he fits the trade exception.
He does. He makes $15.6 million this year.
If he fits the trade exception, you really got to think about it. I'm not being cute. Like, you have that.
I know.
You need shooting. He's from here.
My thing is, I don't know what the Heat would want for him, unless they're just looking to get off his contract, which the Celtics could do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what the Heat would want, because they're a good team. They're a championship team this year.
Oh, like, they absolutely are. See, they'll probably do with him what I think the Celtics should do is make sure they get something back for these guys if they're going to give them up.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a second round pick. Here you go.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see, though. I don't know. I don't
it's
really
a lot
know
of money.
What Miami needs down there.
They're tied up for a while, so they got some decisions to make.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like what they would want, like what their team really needs.
I saw in an article for ESPN like one trade target or trade archetype teams should trade for. The Miami Heat said nothing, just convert Caleb Martin to a standard contract and go. So they don't really.
Okay.
And you got to remember they still have Victor Oladipo.
Yeah,
which,
they do.
You know, even a shell of himself, like that's still Victor Oladipo helping you out on defense, etc. So they're good. They're dangerous. They're really
it's a good team, man. I think they might be the best. Maybe not as good as Milwaukee, and I don't know what's going on in Brooklyn with all their moving parts over there. But
love
I
him
like
or hate
Miami.
him. Love him or hate him, you gotta feel bad for Chicago right now. You feel like
I don't have a problem with Chicago. They must
no, but
those
feel
fools,
bad
they
for
must
them.
have poached some ex-Celtics training staff and taken them for themselves.
Yeah, that sucks, man. I mean, losing Lonzo for that long without Levine now, it hurts. It sucks. Anyways, anything else you wanted to say before we get out of here?
Nothing in particular. Just hope they don't sell for less than whatever guys are worth if they're going to trade them. Specifically Smart.
I said, I tweeted out today, for the sake of my timeline, in my Twitter timeline, I cannot wait for February 11th, But for the sake of my cynical, drama-loving self, February 10th is going to be amazing, and I'm very excited to see what
It'll
happens.
be a fun day. It'll be
It
fun.
will.
I always get a kick of like they wait to the last minute to make trades. I get it. Like you want to make sure you get the best deal. Like if something happens between now and then, somebody gets hurt, they need to fill a spot. Maybe Lonzo. Right? But it always is funny to me that like the trades don't happen until that day. Like, what are you waiting for? Like if you want to like shift your team, you want the time to get meshed together, get prepared for the playoffs. If that's what you're about.
Yeah. We'll see, man. I'm very excited. I think more moves are definitely to come. Whether they'll be substantial, I doubt, but we shall see. Anyways, thank you guys for listening.
Jack and I putting together about an hour for you guys off of just one game.
One topic, really. We just talked about shooting.
We had a good conversation today. It wasn't a bunch of screaming. We defended our sides.
We kept it intact. We did. The pregame was screaming, though. Speaking of the pregame, come check us out 30 minutes before every Celtics game. Guy Boston Sports on YouTube and Facebook. We appreciate that. Thank you for listening to From the Rafters. Always appreciate you guys listening. Check out BannerTownUSA.com and do check out Guy Boston Sports. We're partnered with them, and we appreciate everything they do. Check us both out on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be below our faces. If you're not, I'm at Jack Simone NBA. We're Bannertown USA, and I'll throw it over to Sam, and he'll tell you the rest.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening or watching. Like Jack said, you can check us out on the pregames at Guy Boston. You can check us out on YouTube there or here, maybe. I don't know. We're working on getting our stuff. Oh, we are. We're going to go over there.
Last one was on Guy Boston Sports. Remember to do that.
Well, if you're new and you found us there, which, I mean, you might have, because that's where our pregames are. And if you like us there, you might watch our podcast. But thank you very much. You can follow Jack at Jack Simone NBA. You can follow Bannertown at Bannertown USA. You can follow me at Samuel France NBA. That's our show.